cheering section, right? Yeah, Jolie and Piper, energetically supporting us. I did want to take just a moment and have us tune into our hearts and just place your hands over your heart and just remember this amazing beating, beautiful muscle that really orchestrates and dictates our life here on the planet in so many ways. And just give it a little love and say thank you. And just the fact that you can feel it beating, I mean, we take that so for granted. And the love that we have that registers here. When we think about our hearts, or when we're heartbroken, we kind of hold our heart. When we worry, we kind of come up here, like, oh. So tonight, what John's going to show you is how to make that coherence happen, and how those things really do work together, the mind and the heart. When we're living in coherence, it really makes things much easier. So thank you.
So thank you for coming out. Catherine and I are both doing this class together. 1 second. How about your pen?
He's got all the gadgets.
There we go. Gadgets are really great when they work. So we're just going to go like this. Before we really get started, I'm going to make a couple announcements. Leanne, my wife, and I, we have this gallery, and our focus is to, we want to be more than a gallery, or we already are more than a gallery. We want to be a place where the creative spirit has a venue for expression in many different ways. So Catherine and all of us were talking together. Catherine had the idea of the Fred Talk, like TED Talk. So we're gonna do a series of creative talks where people share their creative process or their creative genius, and we're recording that and putting it on YouTube and creating a channel for that. And our next Fred Talk is going to be with Jim Fox and Nancy Bush. It's called Crossing Paths, Two Perspectives. Some of you probably know Jim Fox or Nancy Bush from here in town. And Nancy Bush is a photographer. Nancy Bush is the painter. Jim Fox is the photographer. And they did this brilliant thing that people are now copying. How long ago was that, Leanne, that they did that?
It's been about 8 years.
8 years. So basically, Jim Fox took photographs that were very similar to paintings. I mean, they looked like paintings. And Nancy Bush did where she did the photography, where they overlapped, where you had a hard time being able to tell whether they were a photograph or a painting. And they're going to be doing a talk January 23rd, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., just like this. The next thing that's coming up is Catherine and I are going to be doing a class in January 13th, 14th, and 15th. The information is in the back of that brochure or that booklet. And it's soul language. This is just going to be a thumbnail of what we're going to be addressing. I mean, there's so much information. We didn't come by this information overnight. It wasn't like magically downloaded. It's taken a long time. We've both been a massage therapist, I think, for about the same amount of time, about 20 years. And the really interesting thing is, before moving here, I never met Catherine Lott. Yet, when we tell our stories, we had one of the same teachers in massage school. His name is David Goya, and I give him all the credit for awakening me and watering my seed. When you're ready, the teacher shows up, that type of thing. He really just opened me up. He's like one of these cosmic guys walking around. And come to find out, she had him in her class when we lived, hundreds of miles apart, and then come to find out. So that was pretty cool. So we're going to be doing that class in January. If you're a massage therapist, you get credits, CE credits for that. And then there's going to be a class coming up in February 4th. Jim Fox is going to be doing an Enhancing Your Photographs. It's going to be a digital class where he's showing you how to work with the computer. Could you speak any more to that, Leanne?
Yes. So he's going to help you edit and make your digital photos better, enhancing them and taking them from the mundane to the exquisite. And you have to be able to have your own computer handy with skill.
Yeah, he's amazing. There's our email, Lee and John at 11squaredvenue.com. If you want to stay in the loop, we put you on our mailing list and send you information. We also have a Facebook presence, like 3 or 4 of those now. 11 Squared Venue, the listening room. We're also doing a listening room concert this past weekend. We did Bob Livingston. That was a blast. Just in here, it's a very intimate setting. You get to hang with the artists in between, and it's not really loud, and it's just really nice, homey feeling, a home concert feeling. And the next big thing that we're having in February is the Durr Photo Club will have a show in here as well. That's about it. So, getting on with what Catherine and I want to present tonight is in Centric HOLY Day. I love words. When I was younger, I had a bit of a dyslexia, I can't use the word, dyslexia, and I just see things differently, words. So sometimes words catch my attention, and I think it's really interesting that in the 3D, or the world, we tend to, the truth of words gets lost. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about, Catherine's going to be bringing in languaging. Languaging is huge. The holy days is what all the holidays are meant to be, holy days. But we turned them into holidays. It's like Hollywood instead of the holiness has been taken out. And this is about putting it back in. Because Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, those are holy days, not holidays, not Hollywood. And we've lost touch with that. And a big part of my thing is I love the blending of the mind, the body, and the spirit. And from my perception, you can't separate them. They're all just one thing. Catherine, do you want to speak a little bit about yourself? And
Oh, sure. Well, I think I know everyone here well enough to know that, I've been living in Fredericksburg for about 8 or 9 years, been a massage therapist for over 20 years, and have been studying the mind-body connection for the last, and coaching, call it life coaching, but I've been studying through mastery systems for the past 3 years, and that really has become my main emphasis at being able to work with people and not on people. So we're having like a shift, I think, occurring in healing arts, where we actually are working with the person, and they're taking responsibility for their own transformation, whether it be physical, mental, or spiritual.
yeah, because working with the body, the mind, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical, if the person isn't showing up, if their intent is not there, it's a hard road to hoe. It's like you wind up trying to do it for them, and it gets messy. And I think we've all done that before. And that's part of your learning curve when you get into the quote-unquote healing arts. I'm pretty much the same as Catherine. Been doing massage 20 years, just a little, 20, 21 years. And I was going to school in a small town close to Oklahoma. And I learned really quickly from that class that there's a lot more going on. But prior to that class, I was like, as far as like being aware, I was like, my eyes were completely closed. David Goyette was the one that woke me up. He had the book Barbara Brennan's Hands of Light. Boom.
Yeah.
I was like, and that started, because like instantly I was like soaking up these books and reading these things. And I've spent more time and money and energy and intent outside of the massage field trying to learn how it all fits together. And not that I have it all figured out, but I do understand a large part of it now. And Catherine's same way. So we're blending what we do. I tend to come at it more like she calls me mechanic, more the mental. It's like the masculine aspect, and she brings in the emotional, the more feminine. And there needs to be a balance.
And practice.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of this is real ethereal, and then you're like, well, but how do I take this home and use it?
Yeah.
And that's been something that I've really had fun playing with, is to see it actually change my physical outer world to reflect my highest choice.
Yeah. And like the movie The Secret. Anybody in here pretty much seen that movie, The Secret, The Law of Attraction? And you wonder, like, how come that doesn't work all the time? Well, there's so many things going on. And so, like you said, we have to get practical tools that you can use and you get results, or you get frustrated. And I've seen, even myself, I went through a period of just reading this different books, but it was basically the same information, and it wasn't helping me expand. And so you learn the certain pearls, but then you have to use it. You have to apply it. And so we're going to give you some tools that are easily applied for your own self. Everybody's heard of Chinese medicine here, acupuncture. There's a thing called pulse points, and it's an Ayurvedic practice, and you have basically 3 superficial, which is not very deep, and then deep meridians. So there's 6 on this side, 6 on this side. There's 12 meridians. And here you can see whether it's superficial or deep, which meridian it is. We're not going to get into pulse point reading, but what I want to show you is that if you really learn this technique, you can feel literally 12 different heartbeats. I mean, that's how they can tell you, okay, your small intestine is very weak, and your heart's too strong. And just by holding your pulse, so your heartbeat is not just giving you one beat, it's giving you a fractal. So this is like one heartbeat here, boom. And then there's another wave riding on it. Let's say that's to the small intestine. Then there's a wave on it going to the liver. And they know how to literally pull that out. That's what the pulse point reading is about, is they read the fractal aspect of the meridians. Julie, you lift them in. There. Oh no! Hi, come on in.
You're right, Susan. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hi.
Hi. Hello, friend. Can I borrow your name for tonight? Yes. Oh, good.
So we're
You
just
just
going.
started. You haven't really.
Oh,
mentioned it.
yeah.
No, we're good.
Thank you.
Okay,
So-
do you need any water or anything before?
Water sounds wonderful, actually. Thank you. You're very kind.
So we just mentioned, and you know of acupuncture, meridians. Okay. Well, in Ayurvedic, they have a practice of reading the 6 different
Yes.
meridians through the pulses.
Yes.
So what we're going into, what we just started talking about when you walked in, was that there is a fractal aspect. There's not just one heartbeat. There's not just one heartbeat. You can actually separate it out and find 12 different heartbeats. So there's 12 different beats riding on the one wave. And what that turns out to be is that your heart is telling each of these organs how to beat. Are they in health or are they in disease? So your heart is the one that is the conductor of this orchestra. You think about it, organs in the orchestra. Your body is a beautiful orchestra, and the conductor is the heart. The heart is telling the rest of your body how to beat. So if you have issues around the lungs, which has to do with grief, your heart sends that signal to the lungs to be weaker than they should be. Or you become asthmatic, or you get bronchitis. When I was a child, I had really bad bronchitis. I came in with a lot of different sensitivities and issues. My stomach was always messed up. That was the main thing, my stomach and my lungs. And the heart is telling these different parts of the body how to be. Are they in good condition or in bad condition? And it's really amazing to me that that just happens with the heart is telling everything how to be all the time. So if you change how your heart is feeling through awareness and self-talk, whether it's internal or external, you change the signal that you're giving the lungs. And that's amazing because as soon as you change your emotions and your mind, your body changes. Because your heart begins to send a different signal. Like, okay, if I'm really feeling like grief because I lost something, some aspect of myself, it doesn't have to be somebody. It could be an aspect of yourself in youth. You lost that aspect and you've been grieving for it. If you come to your heart and you become aware of that and you work on clearing the grief, all of a sudden your lungs get stronger and better because they're no longer getting that signal to be weak. Does that make sense? Okay. And here's, the Dalai Lama, and here his pulse points are being read. His doctor does the pulse point reading. Acupuncture is the medicine of choice in India. So Dalai Lama uses that where he's basically reading the different pulses. The doctor then, of course, has beyond awareness and understanding. And then whether it's herbs or acupuncture, whatever it is, takes to balance out the body. One more thing that I want to put in here is that whatever shows up on the physical body first comes from the mind and the emotions. Whatever shows up in the physical body. So pain, the body doesn't hate you. The body really does not hate you. The body is your vehicle for being here in this world. So when you have pain, the body's trying to tell you something. It is trying to communicate what's really going down, what's happening on a deeper level, whether it's mental or emotional. To me, those two things are tied. You know, have you seen the mind-body-spirit? You know, that's how they try to describe that. But there's really no dash between the mind, the body, or the spirit. It's one thing. It can't be separated. It's like water. The physical body is ice. The emotions are like the flowing water. And then your mind is like the steam. It's all made of the same thing. And you can't separate one or the other. So if you go to a psychologist and you're getting addressed, your mental getting addressed, if you're not also working on the physical aspect of that, then you're not getting the whole picture. And for me, that whole, lasting, true health and well-being in life comes from getting all facets, all aspects.
So how do we bring this home? What does this mean to us as far as how to manifest our highest choice and follow our heart, right? So a lot of times when we talk about our heart's desire or, we talk about the heart a lot in just general language. And so around the holy days, to access your heart to the degree that you can bring your mind, will, and emotions into alignment and not be pulled off course, and to follow that star of your own imagination. So when I think about the Magi and how they were able to override practicality, these men were kings, we suppose, and they were expecting a king that they were going to bring their gifts to. And so when I was thinking about how to stay heart-centric in the holidays, what I thought the main deterrent to that is expectation. So in conscious language, to be expectant, like Mary, or to have an expectation, or just to be expecting a miraculous event. And so an expectation, they say in Alcoholics Anonymous, always brings what? To have an expectation and have it not be fulfilled. Resentment. It can even lead to resentment. And resentment is just like drinking poison and wishing someone else would die. And hello, I've done that. I hate to admit. But when my heart and my mind is clear and I know my highest choice and I can voice it, then what starts to happen in my outer world is miraculous. So when they got to, and of course, according to your belief system, this can be total myth, or this can actually be something that happened and it's been told over and over and over again. Regardless of your belief system, when we follow our heart, we can have miraculous things occur. And instead of having disappointment or expectations around the holidays, to be expectant or expecting a miracle is a completely different thing. And so whenever I was talking to my daughter today earlier about this, and just a change of thought and the change of one word like that can move mountains. And in the conscious language teaching, they say that, our eyes come from brain tissue, actual brain tissue. So when the eyes are being formed, the orb of the eye looks like brain tissue before the sclera is pulled over the top of it, and then the optic nerve that has fiber optics coming through it into the striations of the eye, the optic nerve actually pushes the eye out like a tendril and drops it into the cradle of the face so that the eyes can be ready to project. We used to think that out there was happening to me, but now we know that I'm creating all of this all the time. And the way that I'm creating it is with my tongue. And so at the same time that that's happening with my eye, the heart muscle is being formed. And when the chambers actually come into, before they come into two chambers, your body pulses to the pulse of your mother. So we already have the pulse of the mother, and then we come into our own beat, and usually the rhythm is of our heart is her actual gait of how she's walking. So in massage school, what they taught us is to rock a person. Did anybody ever do that? You know, where you rock them back and forth. And if you hook into someone's natural rhythm, some are faster, some are slower, some are kind of offbeat a little bit. But once you kind of hook into their rhythm, that settles a person down because it's the way that their mother carried them. It's what they're familiar with. But when the heart is formed, the same type of smooth muscle cells, which are involuntary muscle cells, form your tongue. Have you ever stuck out your tongue and tried to keep it still? Like, you can't do it. It's impossible. And so, to think that it's really true that out of our heart, our mouth can speak. So if your heart is jaded, or if you've had a broken heart, and you can really, really, really have a broken heart, and there's a little brain in your heart, scientists call it, are you ready for this? The little brain in your heart.
That's fancy.
Yeah. Like, could you not, like, we've got all these crazy technical terms, but Greg, if you want to learn more about it, Greg Braden, Gregg-Braden, has written numerous books about it and works with a company called Heart Math. Yeah. And Heart Math is a company that actually can register the resonance between your brain waves and your heart waves. Anybody here do heart math?
Familiar with.
I'm
Okay.
just familiar.
Yeah. So there's actually a little device that you have that hooks onto your ear, and it's a meditative process. And what it does is basically take your EEG and your EKG and sync them together. And when that happens, then your heart now, the little brain in your heart, is actually resonant and the conductor that he's talking about. So, so then your environment is created by your highest heart choice, not your worry brain choice or your cognitive, subconscious or conscious mind that sometimes likes to run the show, or we call it the ego. So when you're heart-centric, also one of the things that I learned even today that I think is super fascinating with the whole body-mind thing. So stem cells. They're taking stem cells and growing everything, right? So now what they're showing is that little petri dish, they put the benign environment for the cells. If it's soft and squishy, you get brain and heart cells. If it's hard, what would you get? Bone. Then what they do is they switch them. So they take the bone cells that are beginning to form bone, and they put them in the soft one, and they take the soft and put it in the hard one, and then they switch. So if that's true in science, peer-reviewed science, isn't it true that our own environment is a mimic of that?
Yeah.
So if you're having a hard time around the holidays, soften up. Get a cozy blanket, have a cup of tea, invite friends over, create a safe place. And if you're too, like kind of blah, then you gotta get up and make a list or do something that's more in alignment with something that would actually create structure.
Just a note, because for me, everything external is a reflection of internal. Your body has stem cells in it. Your bone, your marrow holds stem cells. So literally you are using your own stem cell therapy on a daily basis. It's your heart that tells your body whether you're going to use it properly or improperly. And so you can have an injection of stem cells, and if your heart isn't in the right place, that stem cell is still not going to have the right trajectory to hit what it needs to. The heart is telling everything what to be.
And the inner environment is really thought forms, you know, mindful and emotions. So if I'm having a particularly bad day, what happens is, you know, that lower thought form wants to take me downscale. If I'm having a good day, then I'm moving upscale. And so on a scale of emotion, if I'm feeling unconsciousness or apathy or grief, then, you know, or I get my neck starts to be sore, I can think that a cold's coming on, and, you know, and so I'm in charge at that point. And I can pull myself out of it with my thoughts, because thoughts create things. And so follow your heart, follow your star, and and then one quick story. Whenever my kids were this age back here, what they would get was Christmas Day-itis, Christmas Eve-itis. They'd be almost like intolerable because it's just too much. And I was a divorced single mom, and their dad was Santa Claus. So we had these two worlds that they were living in, and one where you get everything that you possibly could even think of, and there's elves and crazy wonderful things, and it's awesome, and my house. And so my heart would break thinking, I cannot compete. I mean, there's no way. There's no resources. There's no, and nor should I. And so before we divorced, there was these beautiful, I don't know if anybody's seen them, they're like Italian nativity sets. And they're resin, but they look like hand-carved wood, and they were very opulent. And I worked at a department store, and I had an expectation that I was going to collect every single one of those and have a full set by the time we were married for 15 years. Well, did not happen. And so the first thing I bought was this. Baby Jesus, because, you know, he's the star of the show, right?
Right.
And this was all I ever ended up with. And it's all I ever needed. And not religiously speaking, but what happened was when the kids would get a little crazy, he would be out in full view in the beginning, and then he would start to move, and then pretty soon, if they didn't, you know, kind of chill out, he would go away altogether. And when they were younger, they'd say, "Mom, where's the baby?" And I'd be like, "Exactly." So, you know, the wise men were not expecting this, right? And so, you know, through the holidays, to be expectant of miracles in whatever form they come. And that can even mean things that you don't necessarily think are what you thought were going to happen. And bring the miracle of this story back out into the front and center.
So I love how the metaphysical and physical overlap, and sometimes I play the heck out of this, but I just love. I mean, I fall in love with how this body is literally the Bible. I mean, you can find right here is the Ark of the Covenant. I'm not going to go into this, but the sphenoid bone is literally the Ark of the Covenant. It holds the pituitary gland, and which, by the way, is two-lobed, and it's like the Ten Commandments. So the commandments are the hormones. You have the Ark of the Covenant within yourself. You have everything within you. And another thing about the heart and the tip of the tongue, in Chinese medicine, they look at the tip of your tongue to diagnose the state of your heart. And where do you, when you're intimate with someone and you're in love with them, where do you have contact, right? You're touching your hearts together. The other aspect of that, there's the physical heart, and then there's the emotional heart, the pericardium. which Catherine and I were talking about. The pericardium is the sac that surrounds the heart. In Chinese medicine, it's the castle wall. If your castle wall is too hard and you're not letting anybody in, the people inside starve to death. If it's not flexible enough to let the blood and the emperor come out, which the emperor is the heart, and visit the rest of the body, taking blood and nourishment to all parts of the body, then everybody suffers. And the pericardium governs the sexual organs. So the two places that you intimately connect with someone is the heart and the emotional heart. That's not an accident. That's not an accident. That's an intimacy and the merging of two people when they're truly in love. There's a big difference between, of course, I'm sure you're aware, sex and making love. It's hugely different. And it's been taken advantage of and altered to certain degrees that the heart gets really damaged. Like we were talking, Catherine says that pericardium can be ripped. All kinds of things can happen to that pericardium from shock and trauma. And the heart here must open before this opens. All the muscles of the inner leg are pericardium related. If your heart is not in the right place, the legs, you know, that's that picture there. So sometimes in this world we get things backwards.
Can you?
Go ahead. No.
You're moving. You're speaking very fast.
Okay, sorry. You just slow me down. I know I can be like a freight train.
Well, what did you say about the emotional heart? It's the pericardium?
The pericardium is this. There's a sac that surrounds the heart.
Uh-huh.
There's the physical heart, then there's a sac that surrounds the heart. It's for immunity and all types of things. And if you think about immunity, what are the first two letters of the word immunity? I and M. If you don't have a strong sense of I am, whatever, then your immune system is always whacked out. You have your thymus here that is very close. That's the organ that governs this area. When your I am, your sense of I am is weak, your immune system is always weak. And you're always going to be getting sick. And this thing's going to be messing you up, and you're going to be pulled this way and that way. So there's a fine balance between, like Catherine mentioned, ego. We don't want to be egotistical, but we have to have a true sense of self. You know, I love looking at the whole world because the world is also a reflection of us as well, the East and the West. You know, before, here in the West, it was all about the mental development, the individual development. In the East, like with the Dalai Lama, it was all about everyone else. But when communist China went over into that area, they had no sense of self in order to protect themselves. So each extreme is negative. You can't go it's all about others and expect to be completely whole, and you can't be all about yourself. It's a balance. That's all it's about. It's all about finding the balance. And if you think about bringing Jesus back into it, the Holy Grail held what? Jesus' blood. And we look at that cryptically and go, what does that really mean? What holds your blood? Your heart holds your blood. The Holy Grail is your own heart. So Christ brought in the energy of when you're in that space of seeing holiness wherever you look, then there's a hormone that is produced by the heart that overruns the brain. In other words, the heart becomes the master of the brain. And the heart is meant to control everything. When you point to yourself, you don't go. You always do this, right? Because intimately or instinctively, we know who we truly are, where our real self is. And again, I like words. For example, Christmas. Going back to the holy days, Christmas has been, the truth of Christmas has been hidden. It's the Mass of Christ. That's what it's supposed to be, but it's come Christmas. So where's the Christ in that? And I love the word time. Again, you see the I am. When we're in that space in time, when the past and the future are not what we're focusing on, we're completely present. I love Ram Dass in his book, Be Here Now. I've given away, I don't know how many copies of that book, but it is really about being here and being now. Being here and being right now in this moment. You know, there's a Zen koan that says, chop wood, carry water before enlightenment. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. It's all where your heart is. You're still living and doing the same thing, but wherever your heart is makes all the difference in the world. If your heart is sad and depressed, then your life, your physical body is going to manifest that illness. And everywhere you look, like you're familiar with feng shui, that is reflected out into your outer world too, because that is a manifestation of yourself as well. We are manifesting, even this evening, we manifest this together. Catherine and I didn't do this by ourselves. There's been tests where they look at a room before there's like this conference, and there's energy building before anybody ever shows up. It's the intention of it happening that builds it. Going into the meridian system, because we're going to end with showing you a couple of techniques regarding the meridian system. The meridians, there's meridians all over the body. You can't even touch one spot without hitting a meridian point. The meridians are the keyboard of your operating system. The hard drive is your consciousness, and then the screen, what do you think the screen is? It's your physical body. It's what you see in the world. So if you don't like what you see on the screen here and the screen out there, how can you change what's on the screen of your computer? What do you have to do? You have to be able to interact with the hard drive. You have to be able to interact with the hard drive, and the only way to do that is through the keyboard. Whether it's the chakra system, the meridian system, consciousness, iridology, reflexology, it's all reflecting the same thing. So what we're getting at is when you start to know what the body is telling you, it's what your body is the body to me is the voice of your soul. And I think it's inappropriate to say we are spiritual beings having a human experience, because that quote alone says that we are dualistic. Spirit is everywhere. If God is omnipresent, God is in every one of my cells. There's no separation. But the main thing is when there's an issue on the screen, like there's some part of your body that is in dis-ease, you can interact with the hard drive, which is your consciousness. You're looking at what kind of pattern did I pick up that's negative? What kind of ego thing did I pick up from maybe my parents or my peers or teachers and preachers? Those things affect our body because it tells our body what to do. But we can completely interact with that and change it. It's like a computer program. You can be the program, or you can be the master user that uses it like it was meant to be used. We're going to go over, and this is in your book, in your little book, but your little booklet. These different meridians are located all over the body, and they're related to different emotions. So when we kind of round this up at the end, I'm going to show you what different, like this finger here is your large intestine, and it relates to grief and letting go. You know, when you point at someone, you're telling them what to do, you're controlling more than you are letting go of the issue. So there's always a balance between all these little things. And this is just a snapshot, so there's so much information we can get into, and we're going to go deeper with the soul language in January. But to give you an overview, the meridians in your body are literally the keyboard. And the cool thing about like the sacred consciousness languaging, when you're touching some part of your body, or you're doing something like this, or you're like this, whatever you're touching, you're literally telling somebody what's going on. And when you know that language, you can read what's going on with someone, because they're unconsciously activating their keyboard all the time. All of us do it. But when you become conscious of it, you're no longer the program, you're the programmer. And that's the difference between being a slave to the world and being a master of the world. And Jesus taught us that we all have the potential to be masters. I truly believe that. So I'm going to show you a quick little technique. Have any of y'all seen the 3 thumps before? Okay, the 3 thumps involve basically 3 meridians. The first meridian is the collarbone. If you feel for your collarbone, under your collarbone, and go towards the center of your chest, the sternum, you find a little hollow there. The interesting thing about the meridians is there's always a little bitty hollow where the meridian point is. You got it. Oh. And so this is a kidney meridian, and we'll get into this later, but the kidney deals with fear. So sometimes this is a good point to touch because fear comes into our lives a lot of times. So when you're tapping these points, let's just start. Tapping these points, and I want you just to take 3 deep breaths in and out. They don't have to be forced, just nice, complete, full breaths in and out. One more time. The next point is the center of the chest. It's the thymus point. And the thymus is the endocrine associated with the heart and the heart chakra. So gently tapping the thymus relaxes your immune system. It brings you down and calms you. So tapping here, you would typically tap and breathe in and out deeply 3 times again. This is like a general reset. This is non-specific, but it is a nice general reset. A little bit, a little bit. Okay, it's a good thing that you brought in that, Susan, because you can focus on something and then tap these points, and it can lessen the trigger. But it's just like a little bitty tune-up. It's not specific. It may not hit the issue. It's not like going in and looking at it and going like, oh, that's totally what that means and addressing that. But it's a nice little quick fix. The next point is right underneath the ribcage. You're going right straight down from your nipples and right underneath the ribcage there. Okay? It's a spleen point. And the spleen is the part of your body that has to do with the lymphatic system, which it detoxes you. Another aspect of the spleen is that it controls the plasma in the body. It's where your blood is recycled. So this particular point deals with worry. Again, you're just tapping these points, breathing 3 deep breaths in and out. And then you just relax. And it's a quick, we took a little bit longer, but you're tapping 3 breaths, tapping 3 breaths, tapping 3 breaths. It's a quick little diffuse. Now, it may not bring you completely out of something, and it may not fix the issue, but it brings you a little bit more back to center. And what Catherine and I are trying to focus on tonight is we're all fall out of center. I fall out of the center. We're human, right? But the thing is, how fast can you get back to your center? Because the longer you're out of the center, the more tornado spinning happens and chaos starts happening. So this is just a quick little technique to get you back into your heart. And this is in your booklet. So you can just do the 3 thumbs, 3 breaths.
Yeah, so, impeccable inner dialogue.
Yeah.
Especially around the holidays,
I'm
right?
glad she's tackling this one.
Yeah, so triggers, they're everywhere. Triggers are out there, they're real, and they seem real, and they when you are triggered, your central nervous system goes into fight or flight, not flow or things that we would prefer. And at that moment, we're called into right action or reaction. And when I went to learn from a wonderful man, shaman, years ago, and he said, your thumb, so to articulate, right? You use your opposable thumbs, which we don't use very much anymore. I've even heard that now handwriting is going out of style, like because we don't need it. But writing heartfelt letters used to happen with the articulation of our thumb and our fingers. The other thing that articulates is our tongue to the top of our roof of our mouth, which creates words. So he said the thumb is the tongue of your hand, and your tongue is the thumb of your mouth. And with these things, we create beauty and poetry and art, and we give back to Creator. And so to be impeccable with our inner and outer dialogue, when you love yourself first, which doesn't seem like the right thing to do, but it's to love your neighbor as yourself, right? Not more than yourself. So I think when I get pulled out of balance, it's when I'm extending too much towards someone else and not feeding my own needs. And especially during the holidays, there's so many things that can pull at you. And I even experienced this over the weekend with family. Just being in your, somebody said, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. It's very difficult, and they are designed that way to pull us out of balance and have us, have to really look at ourselves. And there was a moment when I got triggered a couple of days ago, and I took a minute and I stayed. I touched my feelings as I breathe. That's the first thing that happens is we go, right? And then when we go, everything starts to short circuit because it's the breath of life that creates the flow and really makes it possible for us to have right action. And so at that moment, it was a fraction of an instant where my tongue could have articulated something to someone that could have ruined, I'm telling you, ruined my entire, in fact, maybe even gotten me kicked out of the house, which is, never happened to me before. So it's that fight or flight mechanism that cues the adrenal glands, and then if you're not in your own tube of light and really thinking before you speak to your relatives and saying, what am I feeling? I really actually could be conscious enough to say, okay, what am I feeling? It's usually what? When you're triggered. Anger. It's something that's not exactly going to make your tongue say the right thing. So once I realized I'm just scared, I'm threatened, basically, and about something that's not really even happening. That's the other thing. It was so real to me that I was sweating. It's palpable. And when you feel threatened from the very thing that your heart wants more than anything, it's usually a rejection of some kind, or feeling judged, or someone's taken something from you that was yours, or a family member doesn't act the way that you deem whatever. Then just take some time, and a good rule of thumb is I touch, I stay, I breathe, I feel, I stay. And when I say I stay, I mean I stay in me. And if I have to do this to bring myself back into my body, because a lot of times, depending on the trigger, you can disassociate, okay, and just, you're gone. You left the building. So when I love, I touch, I breathe, I feel. What am I feeling? Most people have no idea. Oh, there's pain in my heart. My heart can actually feel physical pain from an insult or injury that I am creating in my head. I'm making up a story about how this person and that person said or did this thing and thus and such, and now I'm a mess. And a lot of times you either want to punch them in the face or leave. Now, neither one of those things are going to make for a very happy holiday. So when you're in these, well, really before, you can imagine, imagination activation. My highest choice around the holidays are my open heart thrives me and thrives my community. My open heart makes fun of ease, forever self-sustained. So I am the consciousness of Christ. My Christed self can, will, and can choose my highest choice. So then I'm sovereign, hooked up to whatever your choice is in Creator, Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it. I have a tube of light, and when I'm hooked up, then this kind of situation before this kind of situation. So then I'm being fed, constantly fed by this beautiful bath of light. Then the darkness can't prevail, because then I'm not fighting against, I'm cooperating with. And then what's going to happen is my environment is going to feel good. People are going to feel good in my environment, and my environment walks around with me. So it's not that, yeah, my environment, my home environment is one thing. This is my home environment, and so I'm creating my own ecosystem all the time with my tongue and the connection of my heart, my heart and my brain. And then when I hook that up and my words, and it sounds interesting. It sounds like a different language because it is. And so to want, I want means never having, ever. It's just wanting. I choose. See the difference? Can you feel it? When I choose, I'm back online again and I'm aware. So what do I choose about the holidays? Peace. Peace, 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 peace. For my planet, for my community, for my family, my friends, my extended family, and my world. An awakening. I choose to be awake during Christmas time and all the time. So, thank you.
So, what she's showing you the language is so important. In the beginning was the Word, Logos. God created with the Word. But, I take it even further. I'm a kind of a mind tripper. I take something, and I've always been like this, and it usually takes me a lot longer to learn something, because I'm looking at all the multifacets. It took me a while to figure out what I was doing when I was younger, but when I'm looking at something, I'm trying to feel it from all these different sides. And I still do that, but I know now that what I used to do. So when you're taking in something, when you're creating with your word, you think about God, okay? God had to do what? This hypothesize. Before God ever spoke something into creation, do you think there might have been some thought process before? Not like, okay, I'm going to say this is going to happen. No, God's going to be like, I am totally focusing with conscious intent before I speak. The Word creates, but what came before the Word? What came before the Word was conscious thought. And to me, that's one of the, I have many definitions for God. I'm not caught up in any particular view. I agree with a lot of different religions. But one of my thoughts of God is conscious, feeling thought. It is alive. It is alive. And when we tap into that, like we're in that pillar of light, we become the very same thing. We're made in God's image. There was, in my opinion, there was not just one son of God. All of us are sons and daughters of God. It didn't stop with one person. And Jesus was a way shower. Jesus said, I got into my heart and I was the presence of God wherever I was. But Jesus didn't say, oh, it's just me. Jesus said, you too can do it. And I'm showing you how to do it. And there's 1,000 different ways to get to the top of the same mountain. And no one way is the right way. Everybody has their own way. And once you get into that, you get into war, which is we are right. Catholics think this way, Baptists think this way. And you just don't get anywhere. And you got to have a unity there. So bringing in what Catherine mentioned into your feeling is you can focus on the feeling, because when you're tapping the meridians, the thought is what spurs the emotion. Okay, this is how it typically happens. There's an experience. I used to have this equation I used to show. I don't have it on a screen here. But X is the experience, and then there's the response. But what happens in between an experience and a response is so lightning fast that if you don't pay attention to it, you don't even know what happened. An experience first goes through your thought process. Then a feeling comes from that. Then there is a reaction. And what she was mentioning is, is it a reaction or is it a response? A reaction is it's jerking. You were programmed to think that way, and that's what you're going to do. A response is, maybe I'm not going to blast that person or say that particular thing. Maybe I'm going to articulate myself in a different way. And thinking back to the words, what's the first three letters of articulate? It's art. We are meant to be expressions of, we're meant to be beautiful beings. The heart, it's he art. It's his art. We are meant to be expressions of art. That's what we're becoming. And it's like we get to repaint ourselves all the time, like John Welch in here. We got to witness his process. This is his first solo show, but in the beginning he was struggling with himself. But then he plugged into something that was beyond what he's ever experienced before, and all of a sudden he became this amazing channel. And we all have that access. We can all be that. So one quick way to bring in what Catherine says, if you can be still and go, okay, what am I truly feeling here? Not what is my thought, what is my feeling? Now the feeling can go back to the thought, but let's just focus on the thought. If you're feeling sad or something, just feel the feeling. Because here's what happens, what I've noticed with tapping, this EFT, it's kind of what I base my stuff on, but I bring in Chinese medicine. Gary Craig developed EFT, but he didn't know about the Chinese medicine aspect of it. And when you're tapping on something mental without the emotion, then sometimes it doesn't move it out. Again, with words, emotion is energy, emotion. All your feelings are meant to do is move you through life. But what happens with our emotions when they're not proper is they completely stop us. They're no longer flowing. And then we're energetically like this, and then we need something to come along and it's like a broken record. And we need something to hit us and move us forward. So if you can be aware enough, and at first awareness has to happen, then you can tap into that feeling. What am I feeling? I'm totally feeling sad. And then go into it, because like Catherine says, one of the first things we do is we hold our breath. You ever smash your finger with a hammer or something? Besides cussing, what is the next thing you do is you, because we instinctively know when we hold our breaths, we're suppressing the flow, the feeling. But the thing about that is once you have an insult to you, perceived or real, then if you don't breathe through it and feel the true feeling, then it gets stuck in your body and becomes a real dis-ease. So that's a quick thing. So all I'm saying is merging what Catherine says about what is this true feeling, and then letting yourself feel like, I'm feeling sad. And it's going to be more real than just going, okay, I'm just tapping the 3 points. When you're feeling something, you're like, I've done it before, you're like crying, or you're like, you're really angry. You're letting it out, and you're moving that emotion, but you got to get into the emotion to move the energy. You can't do it with a thought. The consciousness creates the emotional movement. You got to get back into the emotion and change the thoughts. Now, you have this page in your work. It's page 4 and 5. So if you're aware of a feeling, then I've given you just a quick, this is just a quick snapshot. I mean, we're doing this really fast.
Yes.
That if you're,
It's a teaser.
yeah, exactly. So if you're doing,
Yes, we are.
if you're doing what Catherine says and you tap into a feeling and it's worry, well, the meridians that govern worry are the stomach and spleen. And I've given you the points. Under the eyes, whoo, I'm really worried about this. I'm anxious about this test. Oh. And then the spleen points under the armpits, right here. Which interestingly enough, interestingly enough is where, let me go back to this. There. Tapping the spleen point is, where do I go with that? I totally lost my train of thought. So the stomach point is worry, and then the spleen point helps move that worry out as well. The spleen point for women is where the underwire hits. And that gets into a whole different issue. And some men, yeah. And that accesses that point too much. But so if you're feeling,
As you worry.
yeah, if you're feeling, there's a lot of hormones in our environment now, like soy milk and things like that. That causes men to have hormonal issues. Those things carry a lot more estrogen. So, like, if you're feeling grief, it would be the lungs, the thumbs, and the meridians are the same on both sides. So it doesn't matter what side you tap on, or the index finger for grief. And again, you're feeling it. You're not really having to think about it. You're just, man, I'm having a hard time letting this go. That's what grief is. You're having a hard time letting something go. Fear is the bridge of the nose and those kidney points that we did. Letting yourself feel it. Wood, this is like, Catherine mentioned this, frustration and anger. Anger comes from frustration because you're pushing on this wall and it's not moving. The more you do that, the more angry you get, right? And the more you do that, it can turn into resentment, which there are true emotions and there's pathological emotions. Sadness is a real emotion. Depression is its perverted aspect, And that causes real disease. And worry becomes anxiety. It's like you have no reason to worry, but you're anxious. That's a disease. And fear becomes a phobia. You're paralyzed. So, and the liver is on that lower rib cage. So again, you're feeling the feelings like, I am really pissed. You know, and just tapping through it and breathing, that helps move that through. So combining the feeling, being aware of what you're feeling, and then using the code. And it's this really simple. It's in your paperwork. You first got to know what the feeling is. Tune into that, and then you can pinpoint clearing that meridian, because these specific meridians help that expression of that feeling, whether it's a healthy expression or an unhealthy expression. An unhealthy expression basically leads to disease. So somebody that worries a lot, what do they get? Stomach ulcers. Okay? Someone that has a lot of grief, they may go to smoking because it's a way of holding that feeling down. Colon, they can become very constipated. I mean, if you can't let go, literally your body will not let go. It goes on and on. There's lots of correlations I could go into, and I'll save you for right now. And does everybody understand that process? And I mean really tap. I mean tap like you mean it. Not like, I mean, if I'm really angry, I'm tapping like I'm angry. I'm moving that emotion through my body because I'm accessing the keyboard that's accessing that organ, which is the organizer of my emotional feeling. So it's a backwards process. I'm going back, go through the meridian to clear out the heart. Because the heart is the one so the heart becomes angry and it makes the liver have issues. Does that make sense? The heart is feeling grief. The lungs become compromised. You have fear, your kidneys and bladder go out. Bladder infections. A lot of fears around that. Liver. When somebody's angry, there's a tendency to drink. And it's a suppression of that. So there's actually an emotion for everything. When you worry, people gravitate. In Chinese medicine, spleen and pancreas are the same thing. When people worry, they gravitate to sweet things to suppress that. So there's a whole system here that we're going to be going into slowly. We didn't get it overnight. But does that make sense? You've got that sheet in there. You just tap and work with the feeling. Tap into the feeling and go.
I think one thing I wanted to
Yeah, go
add
ahead.
to this is to not make wrong. Don't make yourself wrong. So
Right.
I'm angry. Hello, anger. You can sit at the table. You're welcome here. But we're going to work through this and feel our feelings. We don't touch and run. We touch and stay. Now, when you're in the middle of a dinner party, that's going to become weird.
Right.
You know, so within reason, if you have to excuse yourself so
Yeah.
that you don't cause yourself even more trouble, but an unbridled tongue and speaking your own truth is a way to signal your little girl self, hey, I'm taking care of you. You're okay. We're all going to be okay. Everybody's safe here. I'm in charge, not your emotional, crazy pain body world. And so this is a stopgap method that you can leave and go to the restroom and just tap away. I mean, it's just such a simple thing. And a lot of the EFT people say, even though I am so mad, I still love and appreciate myself.
Yeah,
You know?
so there's an acknowledgement of the feeling, like so you're not brushing underneath the rug. And emotions, you know, kind of in the spiritual world, even in the metaphysical spiritual world, feelings have become demonized. But there's no bad feeling. When you're angry, there's probably a good reason why you're angry. Angry is when your boundaries are being pushed and you're being abused in some way. And you need to get angry to make yourself like, no. Fear comes to warn you about things, and that's appropriate. Worry is your mental process. And that's why it's the stomach. You heard about a dog worrying a bone, they chew and chew and chew on it. When you read information, you read a book, you're chewing it up. You're worrying it till you get it into your system. You're finding the solution. If you could not worry, then you would never come to a conclusion of something, because that's the thought process itself. So all of the emotions are appropriate in the right setting. Now, if you have a bad program and you're angry all the time, then that's not a healthy thing. That's something that needs to be addressed. And that gets into acute emotion and stored emotion. If you tell an old story from your past and you still feel the pain of it, that is chronic stored emotion that needs to be cleared. And I guarantee you it's causing dis-ease somewhere in your body. Acute is somebody pulls in front of you and almost makes you crash, you get angry. But then usually acute emotion flares up and then it disappears. And that's how we're meant to be, because it's supposed to help you get through life. So there's no bad emotion, it's what we do with it. You know, if you get angry, do you express how you feel or do you go key somebody's car? You know, there's a huge difference between whether that's going to be a productive expression or a destructive expression. And in any given moment, if we're really in that space between time, we have the freedom to choose. But if something's running, our choice goes out the window. People say we all have free will. And I argue that most of the time, you don't have free will if your programs are running you. It's going to be automatic jerk-knee reaction, and you did not have the willpower to do something different. Anything else, Catherine? Well, that kind of brings us to the end. Thank you for coming out. We've got a soul.
It's only 6:30, right? Because we went really fast.
No.
Yeah, it feels like it.
Well,
Wait a minute.
We've got time for questions.
What time is it? For real? I'm guessing it's 7:14.
7:13.
When I was a massage therapist, I used to play this game. I'd be massaging somebody. I go, it trained my brain. I mean, you can literally train your brain to do anything. And I go, I'm going to look at the clock, and it's going to be, and I did it, and boom.
Yeah.
And now it's a game I play. I even play it with Leanne and the girls. And I'm getting pretty close. And I had no idea. I mean, I wasn't tracking that consciously. One thing that I want to go over is...
Robin has to go.
Oh.
I told her it was only an hour.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I have to be somewhere.
Okay.
It was wonderful, and I look forward to the next one.
Thank you, Robin.
Robin and I actually sat on the porch and bought a Fred Talk.
Cool.
And
Awesome.
she has a grape one in the can that we need to access.
All right, Robin, we want you to come back and do a Fred Talk.
Okay, thank you.
Before we take questions, I just want to throw this out here. We're doing the class January 13th through the 15th. And this is kind of a blurb of it. This is in your booklet as well. Physicians look at what the physical body has to say, while psychologists dive into what the mind and heart are saying, and the clergy focus on hearing spirit. True and lasting physical health, mental, emotional, peace, and a spirit-filled life can only be achieved through looking at and addressing the whole being, not just its individual facets. So I always liken it to a Rubik's Cube. If this is your mental body, you may fix, if you ever played with the Rubik's Cube? Oh my gosh, that was maddening. I never once ever solved a Rubik's Cube. I could get 2 or 3 sides at the most. But the idea is that you don't just fix one side. When you really fix a problem, all facets of it are completely fixed. It's mind, body, spirit, and emotions and energy. And we are literally like a gem. All these different facets are who we really are. But they're one unified thing. This facet is not separate from any other facet. We have to look at the whole thing. And if you break down, me with words again. Facet, it's faces. Facet, the first first four letters of facet is face. We all have different faces, different beings and aspects, but they're really one being in the end. It's unified. So there is a unifying language of the body, the heart, the mind, and the spirit, what Catherine and I are calling soul language. It is a language that can be learned. By knowing the soul language, your soul's language, something as simple, seemingly unimportant as cutting one's index finger contains volumes of information on what's going on, because there is no accident. There is no accident. And when you know that, you can begin to unlock the unconscious, mental, emotional, energetic, and spiritual patterns, limitations, perceptions, judgments, beliefs, and expectations. Because this is how I see it. This is how, for me, what happens is you have a perception about something, then you start judging it, and then you start believing that, and then you expect it to happen. Like she was talking about expectations. And once you expect something to happen, you are really messed up. Because you're creating that.
Right, and we're going to really delve into beliefs, because belief is to be alive in. What do you really choose to be alive in? Instead of just this ambiguous belief that was handed down to you, or that you adopted from someone else, or that you kind of just taken for granted. You can actually change your belief system into something that will make you expectant of show that we can have that heart.
I think that pretty much covers it. Is there any questions of what we covered or anything? I know we just kind of like, boom, it's a lot of information, but. Is it what? Oh, probably,
They are in fact the BD body.
yeah. Yeah, thank you. I put this together, Dan.
Have you ever studied Nick Orton's tapping solution?
No, I haven't
He
studied.
does multiple tapping locations to rid people of compulsions and things.
Mhm.
If you ever want to do that.
He's got his own documentary.
Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, what's happened with Gary, okay, actually thought field therapy, which was Roger Callahan was the beginning of it all. Then Gary Craig studied underneath him, and with Roger Callahan's thought field therapy, he had a device, which was interesting because it was all language. How your voice frequencies came out told you where you were out of whack. But then Gary Craig tried to make that more simple. She said, I'm talking fast. And usually I'm talking fast because I'm trying to put a lot of information in. So, totally lost what I was saying there.
So it's your voice pattern.
Okay, Roger Callahan's TFT, thought field therapy, Gary Craig studied that, but he was too complex to him, so he created EFT, which was tapping the basically 12 meridian system. And everybody has taken that and gone in multiple different directions. I even created a system called MEAN, Meridian Energy Activation Neutralization. Gary Craig didn't know about the meridian system because when you tap here, 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 it's easy to remember, but the meridians, there's 12 meridians, but they're not separate, they're one stream. So the long meridian goes down here, and it's picked up by the colon. The colon goes here, goes to the stomach goes down to the second toe, the spleen picks up the big toe, goes to here, the heart comes out of the armpit, it's one flow. So if you tap in the direction of that flow, you're pushing it through, instead of here's the string, you get diffuse, they start canceling each other out. So my system MEAN is basically you're following it through its real true pattern all the way out of the system. You're pushing that frequency issue, the program, the belief, the misperception, the expectation out of the mind body. And once that's aligned, your heart is like, oh, I can start telling my lungs to be healthy.
And I just learned a technique on how to actually heal a broken heart. Which sounds like totally wild, but it was the most amazing class. And so the electromagnetic field of the heart, the world's largest electromagnetic field that resonates with that is the central sun. And so there's when you get the heart broken, which most humans do, if you're living not in a cave, and even then you want to, the heart goes offline basically, and so when you bring it back online through the use of the connection with the electromagnetic field of the sun, then you reboot the heart. You can actually reboot the heart, and all of its components go back online. Then your open heart can thrive. Whereas before you might have closed off a part of it for protection purposes, the pericardium, the endocardium, the heart muscle cells. I mean, we'll go into much more detail about what this amazing motor that runs us can do.
And the myriad of overlaps is incredible. The fire element, Chinese medicine, the fire element is what governs the heart. In our lives, the sun is the pure fireball, right? So when we tune back into it, our heart gets reset with that fire energy. And it even, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And it even gets into astrology. Astrology even falls into it as well, where the solar system is really a map of our soul system.
Mm-hmm.
The first part is SOL. You know, that's how it's spelled before. It's the soul. I mean, your soul is the center of your being. the sun is at the very center, right? And then it has its organelles that separate out. So Mercury relates to the nervous system and on and on. It's an amazing overlap of system. And once you start to see it, it's literally like reading the matrix. And the cool thing about it is, you know, before you're still living it, you're still doing it, you're still using the same system. But once you become aware of it, you can interact with it. You become like Neo in the Matrix. You can see it and interact with it and not be a victim of it. I'm sorry, your question?
Well, I just had something physically happen to me
Okay.
a while back, and it changed how, I didn't know whether it was good or bad, you know, but I always have this positive attitude about whatever happens, it's for the good of all. And so, but what I noticed was, what happened was I actually slipped and fell flat on my back, and it felt like a fire hose of energy came out of my heart. And I was kind of weak and just, you know, wobbly for a while. But then after that, I would notice that the first moment that I recognized I was awake, I could feel like a ring of fire around my heart. And so I felt like that was me coming back into my physical body from wherever I was. But then it comes and goes, you know, and there are times that I don't feel that at all anymore. And I didn't know, you know, a naturopathic doctor told me that I actually shocked my heart and kind of like with the paddles, you know, re-kicked it, started, you know, but it's like there's so much knowledge and so much confusion with all of this.
Well, it's electromagnetic.
Mhm.
There are charges that can occur, I think, emotionally, physically, mentally.
Yeah, that was an extremely emotional day, and
If you could go back and remember what you were thinking about at the time that you fell, that's also another study that shows that if you're in discord, if your heart and your brain are having a war with each other, you're more apt to have accidents. I've got a really good client that is a inner city cop in Chicago, and he does a lot of traffic violations and accidents, and he will tell me that he'll come upon someone who, you know, the airbag is deployed, and when he finally can get to him, they actually come to, because they were in their story. They were engrossed. They weren't even really driving. They were in their story
Right.
when they had the accident, and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, this is the worst day of my life," and then they'll tell him what they were experiencing right before the accident.
There's
It's like
this,
texting and driving.
yeah, that's true. You know, there's really one part of the body, but you can take it apart. There's the subconscious mind, which is the unconscious part of us, and the conscious mind. You only have one mind, but there's part of you that you're unconscious in what it's thinking. And to prove this point, have you ever drove somewhere and you wound up somewhere different than you intended? It means that your subconscious you weren't consciously present in that moment. Your subconscious took over. And the bad thing about that is your subconscious is where all the negative viral programs live. And once those, and if you've been asleep at the wheel, metaphorically and physically, if you're asleep at the wheel for a long period of time, you're creating multiple crashes all the time, whether they're a physical crash or a mental emotional crash. And the thing about it, there's no accident. Everything that happens to you is synchronistic. You know, the big buzzword in the metaphysical world is synchronicity. And people tend to use that word when everything's going good. But you know what? All the negativity is synchronistic too. Your life, 24/7, is a synchronicity with what's going on in your heart. It's trying to tell you what your heart is doing. There's no one point in your life where synchronicity falls out.
Okay.
It's impossible.
And if you're rehearsing your curse all the time,
Ooh, done that.
Rehearsing your curse.
You're mentally.
when our program's running about something that's negative, we're rehearsing the curse. What he did, she did, they did. And you said this to me, and I'm going to say this to you. And back in 1960, when I was disgusting, and things like that. And that chews up bandwidth in your computer
but the thing about it is you're unaware of it. It's like, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid. So, and you think you can do an affirmation of, I'm wealthy, and try to do that maybe a couple of times a day, when you're really throwing a rock at a Goliath that's saying, I'm worthless, I'm worthless, I'm worthless, like boom, 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 and you go, I am wealthy and my world is great. Well, an affirmation may have a little bit of effect, but you're trying to shoot down Godzilla with rocks. So you've got to become aware of what's in here running the show and neutralize that, and then the heart goes and comes.
Bringing your feeling world online, back online. You know, where my feeling world is now in alignment with my highest truth. Then that's when your outer world starts to shape up and things start changing really fast. And that's one of the things that we're going to work on is not an affirmation, but an emotional pattern that's actually positive through decree. So decree, declare, and demand is way different than an affirmation.
Right. Well, like Catherine and I were talking, if would you think that a millionaire would ever have to, or even think about affirming, I am wealthy? Oh my God, no. They don't have to affirm it. So our affirmations already come from a place of not having that. So what we're really trying to do is convince ourselves that we're not what we are. When you have to acknowledge what's going on, and before you can ever change it. So, yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. And you know what? I mean, you can look at all the negative things in the world, but in some way, I do believe in my heart of hearts that, like where you fell, you know, to me, everything is for our betterment. Even when it is horrible, it's trying to stimulate us to the next level. And if you can keep that in mind, then the world isn't a bad place, and it's not against us. It's for us all the time. It really is for us all the time.
Yeah. It's just funny because most of the time, if I fall forward, and that's the only time I have ever gone, bam,
Yeah.
like
Well,
So you get your feet knocked out.
that. They were literally,
Yeah.
I went from walking this way to being that way in a matter of less than a second.
see, what I love about the overlap is sometimes the accident that happened is literally what's going on mentally, emotionally. So, I mean, I'm not saying this was going on, but let's just say that your feet got knocked out from under you and you fell back. So it's like you fell back and maybe into the past. Something from the past was coming out at that moment. You know what I mean?
So overwhelmed.
It was.
So even the accident will give you an example of what's going on. I'll give you an example. I used to do a group setting. We did tapping because I love that technique. I've studied all kinds of different modalities, but I love that technique. And there was a woman there that was about to get her 9th stint. Her 9th stint. And we were tapping with her. It was amazing to watch because when you're not the only person working, because when there's other people working on someone, you don't have to be the only witness. And sometimes if you witness something, you think, oh, did I really see that or not? So I'm working on her. She's up front, laying on the table. I might even be on one of my YouTube videos, tapping. And I get, here's the cool literal thing. She had issues with her family going back to childhood. What is another term that we use for blood vessels? Bloodlines. The bloodlines between her family members were clogged energetically. So physically, her bloodlines were clogged, and she was needing some kind of external thing to try to open those up. So she was like, oh yeah, I get that. And then at the end of that, or towards the end, you could see where she tried to revert back. It's like, oh yeah, I see that. But then she would try to deny it. It was amazing. So her heart, and sometimes this happens, I mean, to all of us, the best of all of us, is sometimes there's a pattern so strong that it will fight for its life. I mean, homeostasis, your body tries to maintain homeostasis even if it's unhealthy. So when you make a new change or you get a new supplement, this happens to myself, and I've seen it with other clients. If I get a supplement or a flower essence for someone to take, the person will do it for a little while, but then all of a sudden, you start forgetting to do it. It's because that part of you is becoming, it's falling back asleep.
Yeah, we call it a standing wave when it's that pervasive. Because it will try to kill the host.
Yeah.
ever been, are you all in the healing arts, everybody?
No,
No,
not
no.
at all. I'm
You
not.
are, you are.
Well, have you been in groups before where one person sort of takes over?
Yes.
And the whole situation sort of deteriorates, and you can't get a word in edgewise, so that's a standing wave of energy. It's just energetic thought form, that's all it is. And there are ways to snap that they're in trance, basically, and it's transcendence that breaks you out of that negative trance. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah. And what I've noticed with language is a really good point, is the one way that we change and grow is through communication. That is the only way that we grow, whether the communication is a book, whether it's a music that we teach, or we're talking to someone. And what happens when some kind of pattern is really strong, it will not allow you to talk to it. So if you're talking to someone and they cannot hear you, you know you're dealing with a pattern that is trying to hold on, and it doesn't want to die. It literally doesn't want to die, because those thoughts think they're real. So if you're talking to someone and they can't hear you, and you're like, okay, please hear me, it's like that thing is taken over. But if you stick with it, sometimes it just opens up and it's like, okay, I'm ready to hear. Because once you open your ears to hear, you are ready to change. Someone that never listens to what you're saying, or they can't hear what you're saying, unconsciously or consciously, is not ready to change. But once you can talk to someone, anything can change with communication. Your body stays healthy through communication. In Chinese medicine, the only thing that causes dis-ease is a misdirection of communication or a complete cutoff of communication. That's the only thing, which is the flow of energy. So as long as you can keep the lines of communication between you, the world, and going back to the logos, then anything is possible. Once that communication is controlled, the creation process is controlled. You can't change.
Clear agreements.
The what?
Clear agreements. When you have clear agreements with Source, you know, I'm do it, whatever, however you want to say it. I'm of service, I'll do it, good and wise. And then you have clear agreements with yourself. I'm choosing to care for myself in ways that are exclusive. Number one, number two, number three. And then my clear agreement with you is I choose to respect you in every way, in my dialogue, in the way that I approach you, noticing your boundaries. You know, when I have clear agreements like that, there's so little room for misunderstanding. So, and that's really all that any discord is. Really, it's just a misunderstanding.
And when it happens, it's like we're going through the process, and you know, like I said, pain is not your enemy. Pain is trying to show you where you need to grow. So it's going to happen to us. Pain is inevitable. You cannot escape it. But just realize that it's trying to tell you something. So even the worst thing in the world, if you stick with it, can bring about change.
And we'll get into the
Yeah.
emotions and where they reside and how to know like grief in the lungs and what that looks like. It's going to be I would sign up. Thank you guys for your patience. Any other questions?
Thank y'all. So this is something I used to say all the time. Play. It's like we are all made of the same star stuff. We are all warmed by the same sun. We all walk on the same earth. We all breathe the same air. We all drink the same water. And we are all fed by the same planet. I honor that place in you, that when you are in that place in you, and I am in that place in me, we are one. And that's the meaning of namaste. When you say namaste, you're acknowledging that you're all the same. And if you can live in that space, which is hard, then every interaction you have is a spiritual interaction. So, thank you.
Thank you.